Hi, this is Aaron McKee, and my presentation is on the skill to think creatively. And the purpose of this presentation is to highlight the urgency and importance of developing students' ability to think creatively. Education pioneers, business leaders, teachers, parents, and research all agree students must develop the ability to think creatively. Students who can learn and practice creative skills such as discovery, inquiry, imagine new ways of solving problems, approaching challenges, and making connections will flourish in 2020 and beyond. As you listen to this presentation, I encourage you to reflect on your understanding and experience and decide what is best for your students. The essential questions I'll have for this presentation will be to analyze the current public education system and uncover why there should be change. Evidence and opinion suggest when the change should take place, and public education system is complex and struggles with change. We'll talk a little bit about that. And this presentation will try to determine where the change could or should take place. In order for change to happen, one needs to find out who will be the change agent. And based on research and expert advice, this presentation will provide ways how to teach students to think creatively. So, how did we get here? Why change? Well, the education model today was designed for yesterday. Public education was designed to meet the needs of the Industrial Revolution. Each principle was designed for production, conformity, and standardization. The current education system focuses on remembering and understanding the right answer. If you fast forward to No Child Left Behind, which became law in 2001, the schools were mobilized around standards and testing. Now, the intention was to close the gap between high-performing and low-performing schools, but what they failed to recognize was it emphasizes on test performance. Now, President Obama established Race to the Top initiative in 2009, which made test prep an all-consuming focus of schools. In 2015, Obama remarked, "Learning is about so much more than just filling in the right bubble." In the Every Student Succeeds Act, passed in 2015, modified the No Child Left Behind Act, but did not eliminate standardized tests. Teachers and students are told what knowledge is needed to do well on the tests. As you can see from this figure, we kind of have a misdirected path for public education. So what the world needs is more creative problem solvers, and what each stage of the education model, what's actually done is gone down. And the ideal path for what the economy needs for the future needs to go up. And right now we're down in the lower area of creative skills. And all of this is due to standardized tests. So the knowledge for yesterday. Former Governor of Florida, Jeb Bush, said in a quote about education, "If you cannot count it, it doesn't matter." Well, in the 21st century, he should have quoted noted author Brené Brown, "When it comes to education, if you can measure it, it probably does not matter." Schools are teaching students to be proficient at taking tests rather than the content that they're supposed to be teaching. Knowing the facts and not understanding how to apply them is a waste of time. And as you can see, the century-old model is data-driven versus purpose-driven. The old century model recognizes drill and being college ready versus being creative and life ready. So the knowledge for tomorrow is regarding what is important, and there continues to be debate on what knowledge and skills the students should have as a result of their education. And what's clear is that the pace of the world continues to accelerate, and educators and administrators have to learn how to adapt to these changes. So, in the 21st century, the new skill set includes flexibility, creativity, communication skills, observing, questioning, problem solving, adapting, critical thinking, technology integrating, and having global awareness. Grade school students will end up doing work that's not yet been invented. And in order to flourish in this changing landscape, having the ability to think creatively is essential. In the revised Bloom's taxonomy, creating is labeled at the highest form of thinking, while remembering and understanding are at the lowest forms of thinking. And remember, testing and memorizing gets into understanding and remembering, which is the lowest. However, they're the easiest to test. But students will be handed global challenges, so students need to have the opportunity to discuss current problems, and the students need the opportunity to think creatively to explore possible solutions to solve global challenges. So in a quote by Albert Einstein, a message to intellectuals, he says, "Our situation is not comparable to anything in the past. It is impossible, therefore, to apply methods and measures which at an earlier age might have been sufficient. We must revolutionize our thinking, revolutionize our actions, and we must have the courage to revolutionize relations among nations of the world. Clichés of yesterday will no longer do today, and will no doubt be hopelessly out of date tomorrow." And what's interesting is the date of when that speech was made, 1948. So when should we change? Our world is in a global revolution, and our education system needs to adapt to the rapid changes and new demands. Automation and globalization have already profoundly changed global societies, and these changes are now happening even faster. The World Economic Forum created a report, the Future of Jobs Report of 2018, which ranks creativity and critical thinking among the 10 most in-demand skills for today and into the future. A quote from that study says, "Today's workforce is undergoing a radical transformation. Jobs are disappearing as computers and robots take over routine tasks. Almost all jobs are changing as people and workplaces continually adapt to new technologies, new sources of information, and new communication channels. So, in an increasingly complex world and workforce, today's students must master essential problem solving and critical thinking skills to be successful in the future. Future jobs will require individuals who can develop new, creative ways to address problems." So, where should change take place? Students must develop the ability to think and act creatively in order to succeed in the fourth industrial revolution, which we are currently in, which will require educators to teach students how to think creatively in the classroom. A U.S. study conducted in 2019, Creativity and Education and Why It Matters, conducted by Adobe, found that 78% of the respondents agreed that creative thinking was critical in their career, and 71% believed that creativity is a skill that can be learned. Nearly 3/4 say creative thinking should be taught as a class like math or science. Around the world, educators are already fostering creative thinking with their students. John Piera, Vice President of Education, said that what this study is telling us is that we need to empower and accelerate this shift. Creativity is a critical competency that should be taught within all disciplines. This skill will drive the global economy and career success for the next generation. Our system shuts many kids out because they do not understand or do not do well with standardized tests. Even Albert Einstein was assessed as an idiot. He was one of the most intelligent human beings to walk the planet. If we can create a system that taps into this unique creative potential of each human being, the future is limitless. Teachers and schools that promote creativity will ensure that pupils and students respond positively to opportunities and the responsibilities and are better able to cope with the new challenges as well as the change in adversity. So who will be the change agent? The truth is that public education system has never been able to make radical change. Teachers are the change agents that are needed to make the immediate and radical shift from teaching knowledge of yesterday to focusing on teaching the skills needed to be successful for tomorrow. Teachers need to continue to be inventive and develop strategies to engage and encourage students. We are the change agents. We are in the system, and we have to continue to change it. Any change in the education has many barriers to overcome before change can take place. There are mental barriers to teaching to be creative, which involves risk-taking and doing something different from the normal. There's instructional barriers that involves breaking the rules, challenging assumptions, taking risks and issues with convention, and questioning tradition. The list goes on and on. However, with administration support for trying new things, allows the opportunity to integrate teaching creatively. If we have support from technology coaches and instructional coaches, then teachers will feel empowered to overcome these barriers. Teachers want what's best for their students growing up in the 21st century. We continue to tell our students not to have fixed mindsets. Change agents and teacher leaders need to continue to have growth mindsets and understand that change and possibility goes right along with it. Teachers and teacher leaders will continue to be the real change agents. So how to teach creativity? There are a number of ways, but I feel like each one has one of these elements embedded in them. And of the 4 elements, there's purpose, essentials, agencies, and knowledge. And for purpose, students work on problems that are important to them and their community. And they complete these projects with real-world impact. And a lot of times these are project-based, and they're purposeful and meaningful to the students. The next is essentials. Teachers should have an understanding of the skills needed in the 21st century and should include creativity and creative thinking. Agency. Starting at a young age, students learn to set goals, manage their efforts, assess their progress, and persevere to completion. So as they learn how to learn, they free themselves from the need for formal instruction. And last, knowledge. When students master in-depth knowledge, they can teach others. Their knowledge is reflected in the quality of what they create, build, make, and design. So, ways to teach students to think creatively and apply the above elements, I think, are best interpreted as learning by doing, or project-based learning, or inquiry-based learning. And Ted Sizer says the best thing that you can do in education is create conditions for them to flourish and then get out of the way. John Dewey also said that give the pupils or students something to do, not something to learn. And the doing is such a nature of demand thinking and learning naturally. Another way for students to practice learning and think creatively is by, like I said earlier, project-based activities, allowing students to have the option to use technology to complete those project-based activities. So these project-based lessons allow students the flexibility to make their own choices. Students rarely are given opportunities to make mistakes and learn from them. So this is a way that we can allow students to make mistakes through these inquiry-based models and provide relevant and real-world context for student learning. So some educators may be hesitant to implement project-based learning. It can sometimes be messy, unorganized, and look chaotic. But in all elements, there's great learning that's going on. And one path that I really like is the steps for the process. So you first start with a question, and you have some personal knowledge that goes with it. And then you make some type of prediction or investigate a plan, look at observations, data analysis, secondary knowledge, explanation, application, which then brings you all the way back into having another question. So the flow of this too is just ongoing search for knowledge, and I think it's a great model for students to think creatively. Because school districts are moving to one-to-one technology for students, teachers are using technologies to be more engaging. And in a Gallup study for creativity and learning, the report found that teachers who combine creativity with technology see better results. And as mentioned earlier, we need to prepare the students for life where artificial intelligence, robots, supercomputers are doing manual labor, which making the students integrate technology into their learning is key for developing those skills. Humans need to practice how to use the technology tools to developing the skills that make them human. And that's something that even though there will be technology, there's nothing that can replace the soft skills. So as you can see here with some of the percentages here, 68% of project-based assignments, when they're incorporating technology, have a better outcome. And they are also a better measure than standardized tests when looking for ways to measure students' learning. And 85% of the teachers say that their learning is transformative using the technology. And 3 out of 4 teachers say that technology-based lessons are more likely to help students develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So the last one, questions versus answer, is one of my favorite because it's the first way that we can encourage students is to question instead of soliciting for answers. And if you think of ways to majorly mess something up, sometimes living in the worst possible outcome sheds light on a solution. And students usually generate ideas from brainstorming, and it's a useful way to generate questions. So when students generate questions, they tend to delve into problems more intelligently and challenge their assumptions, and it helps spark a multitude of possible ideas. And an example of this is Thomas Edison and his work on developing the light bulb. So before developing the light bulb, Edison was questioned many times about his failed attempts at producing a light bulb. And Edison always responded with a simple saying, "I have not failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that will not work." His hard work and dedication eventually led to the development of the light bulb. It's a good reminder to encourage kids to try again and not acknowledge the failures, but focus on the process of learning. So, in review, why we are currently continuing to prepare students for life in an education system which is designed around an outdated industrial model. And if we are supposed to be preparing students for the future not yet revealed, we are failing. So when? Our education system needs to be nimble enough to adapt to the rapid changes, relevant enough to deal with the modern technology advances, individualized enough to allow each child the opportunity to develop his or her unique skill set, and broad enough to prepare students for the global challenges they will face. And where? Students must develop the ability to think and act creatively in order to be successful, which will require educators to teach students how to think creatively in the classroom. Who? In order to change education, we, the teachers, need to be the change agent. How? The exciting thing is that there are numerous ways teachers can implement change tomorrow and allow students to start developing their creativity skills using inquiry-based learning and, my favorite, just simply questioning versus looking for answers. So I encourage you to continue to reflect and ask, why do we teach students this way? And if the answer is we've always done it this way, then we need to ask ourselves, is this what is best for our students? Thanks for listening to my presentation. I look forward to seeing your evaluation and mention any questions that you have there, and continue to wonder what's out there and notice all the good things that are taking place. Have a great day or night, depending on when you're listening to this.